I think that the starters are the most recognizable fires, but there's one fire that was one of the most influential, impactful Pokemon in Season 1, and that was the Kanto Ninetales, specifically the Shadow Kanto Ninetales. It was on the winning team. We saw Cindy and Vancouver taking the crown on the back of that Ember Shadow Kanto Ninetales. Since that regional, this season we haven't seen any at all.
No. Hisnurg, otherwise known as otherwise known as Greenish Backwards, brought the Kanto Ninetales into the front of the meta, I would say, given that its positioning against the Walrein, the Registeel, the Trevenant, and honestly, even the Sableye, even though Sableye wins that matchup most of the times, was so potent. Looking at these two teams here, we do have some Pokemon that are new. We do have some Pokemon that are old. I spy with my little eye a Walrein.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move to the stage here. We can take a look at these teams. Before we go into it, I do want to call out one particular fact here. We talked about Cindy. She was our Vancouver Regional Championship. Actually, in a relationship with King, this weekend they're actually getting married. So 2 regional champions getting married. An absolutely Cinderella story. Love to see it. Very heartwarming, very wholesome, Phoebe.
Very much a power couple.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move to the stage here. Let's take a look at these teams here. We've got Chia Mika running the Trevenant, Walrein, Altaria, Medicham, Toxapex, and Azumarill. So it's great to see this Walrein come back. We have not seen it. It's a great answer to the Altaria. We're going to see how it plays out here. Over on the right, we have, looks like Zersolis.
Yeah, Zersolis is running that Araquanid, Galarian Stunfisk, Trevenant, Scrafty, Registeel, and Alolan Ninetales.
Well, let's talk about some of these Pokemon that we haven't seen in Group A whatsoever. The Registeel, Pokemon that's going to do very nicely versus things like Azumarill, going to do nicely versus things like Altaria, and Walrein as well. So I see 3 targets right away that are very obvious that we've seen very regularly in Season 1. But there's a 4th target there as well. It is the Toxapex. When we take a look at Registeel, it's going to be double resisting all of the poison jabs. It takes neutral damage from Brine, which isn't a good move, and then it double resists that Sludge Wave as well. So when I'm taking a look at Zersolis' team, Registeel seems to be a no-brainer pick.
Yeah, and I think Registeel will pair very nicely with that Alolan Ninetales, given that the main counters for that Registeel are going to be the Medicham and the Trevenant, Ninetales having pretty positive matchups against those 2 Pokemon.
Yeah, without a doubt. Chia Mika is going to have to figure out, okay, well, what's going to be the formula, knowing that that Registeel is likely going to be brought every game. Medicham's going to be crucial in getting lined up. Walrein is able to hit for an Earthquake, but not going to be enough to fully knock out. It's going to have to be a committee effort, most likely, between the Trevenant, the Medicham, and something else in order to take down that big Registeel.
Yeah, and we do actually see a double steel strat coming in from Zersolis with the Galarian Stunfisk and the Registeel. Chia Mika not having 2 solid answers to steel types. She has 1 solid answer with that Medicham and a more soft answer with the Trevenant, no Swampert, no Mudboy, one might say.
Well, what's really interesting here on Zersolis' team is that we're seeing another Araquanid. We saw none in Group A, and now in 2 matches, we're seeing 2 Araquanids. Finally, this Araquanid does have a target, though. It's the Walrein, but we're going to move into game number 1. We have Chia Mika on the left. We've got Zersolis on the right. Medicham into the Araquanid. Pretty solid matchup here for this Araquanid.
Yeah, the Araquanid does like this lead matchup. It is going to need to reach for those Bug Buzzes. Bubble Beam, while being neutral damage and lowering the attack, just does not quite pack a big enough of a punch against the fighting and Psychic type of Medicham.
Well, Chia Mika able to get to the Psychic just before the Bug Buzz, so nice timing, and able to land it, so that's going to be a lot of neutral damage. Takes it already into the yellow, about 50% HP. I've got to be feeling pretty good if I'm Zersolis, though, knowing that this Medicham is out on the floor right now. It's already more than half of the way down, and I've got 2 steals in the back, which that's its main threat.
Yes, both steals are in the back. We see the swap out into the Altaria, attempting to catch a move. It draws out one of the steel types of the Galarian Stunfisk. Now the Registeel's in the back, and it's going to potentially have to face that Trevenant. And honestly, between Galarian Stunfisk and Registeel, I prefer Galarian Stunfisk against the Trevenant.
Yeah, I'd prefer to have my Galarian Stunfisk versus the Trevenant as well. I think Trevenant has a nicer matchup versus that Registeel, especially because of the lock-ons. The lock-ons are going to be double resisted. The Zap Cannons are going to be resisted as well. So despite them being resisted, it's not that bad of a matchup for Registeel, but I prefer the neutral rock slides coming from the Galarian Stunfisk rather than the all-resisted moves coming from the Reggie.
Indeed, we see the second sky attack being shot off. It does not do a lot of damage. It is resisted by the steel typing of the Galarian Stunfisk. Another rock slide is reached. This does not threaten Chia Mika's Altaria.
Yeah, Alpha V, we've talked about this time and time again. Even though this seems like such a straightforward matchup, 2 rock slides are not enough to knock out that Altaria, and your double resisted moves in the mud shots are not going to be enough either. But this is going to bring back in the Medicham, which actually frees up the Registeel even more. With this Medicham back on the field now, going to be able to farm it down likely with the Araquanid. Maybe even, yeah, bringing the Araquanid back into play here. Going for the Psychic, not able to reach it. This is going to be an Ice Punch. This is a resisted move, and Zersulis knows it. Not enough to knock out. I think this is a very nice no shield.
Yes, I agree. Great no shield, but the interesting thing here is the Altaria is saved and can now wall the rest of this Araquanid energy. The Trevenant has a lot to do, though. It is 2 shields and 2 Pokemon. The Galarian Stunfisk might be able to catch a charge move. Does a resisted Bubble Beam here knock out Wholesome?
I don't think so. I think that this is such a, despite being stabbed, such a non-hard hitting move. The challenge is I don't know that you're going to be able to farm down. Yeah, ends up having to throw the Sky Attack. Still 2 Protect Shields remain for Zersulis. Has no reason to hold on to this Araquanid whatsoever. Decides to let it go down. Still have 2 Pokemon at this point and going to be bringing in the Galarian Stunfisk. But no, actually able to get this last Sky Attack off. Has a lot of energy. Do you want to hold on or let this go?
It is going to go through. That does knock out the Galarian Stunfisk, and now the Registeel is able to get locked on down. Now the Trevenant up or down 2 shields to 1 has a little bit of makeup work to do. We see the Shadow Ball come out at the same time as the Zap Cannon. That is a forced CMP between these 2 Pokemon. Does Zersulis shield?
Oh my gosh, no, lets the Shadow Ball go through. An interesting play. That's going to be the hardest hitting move, knowing that you're going straight for these Zap Cannons. Likely going to be see the debuff. It is a 66% chance to debuff an opponent's attack. We see the last Protect Shield come out on the side of Chia Mika, and we do get the attack drop. So yes, that was going to be the hardest hitting move, but what this opens up now is straight Seed Bomb, despite throwing a resistant move. At this point, if you're Zersulis, you're having to shield these resistant Seed Bombs.
Yes, and it's a bit tough to know exactly how to play this out. Should you go straight for the Shadow Claw down, or should you go for the Seed Bombs, knowing that each shielded Seed Bomb does 1 damage to that Registeel?
Yeah, it's a tough decision to make here. Really trying to get that last Protect Shield at this point. I don't know. And we're going to have to reach another Zap Cannon here. Going for another Seed Bomb. This is going to be very close. Going to be down to the wire. These Zap Cannons charge so fast. In fact, I don't know. Maybe a double resisted Focus Blast could even be enough here. This is going to be a race to the finish, Alpha Phoebe.
And the Shadow Claws are coming through, and they do just enough damage to knock out the Registeel. That is a win for Chia Mika.
I can't believe it. I cannot believe that Chia Mika was able to pull that one off. At this point, I think the only win condition was no shielding that Shadow Ball early on, and we saw 2 debuffs come out after that, able to farm down. But what it provided was a much more manageable game, only having to chip away roughly 1/3 of that Registeel's health, knowing that so much of it was knocked out early on with that Shadow Ball. Now, I get it. Zersulis trying to say, okay, it's so likely that a Seed Bomb gets thrown here. There's so much energy. There's no way that Chia Mika is going to be throwing the Shadow Ball. But sometimes you have to play against logic and throw the Shadow Ball anyway, knowing that it's probably your only win con. Chia Mika able to take game number 1.
Yeah, very unique play there. Definitely hard to call whether or not that first charge move is going to be a bait. Very solid Trevenant play there at the end, knowing that the Shadow Claw down was going to be possible for that before that final charge move. It's going to be interesting to see how our trainer on the right decides to combat that Trevenant.
Yeah, so Zersulis ran the double steel team, which frankly I think had a lot of advantages. I think it could be another good strategy for game number 2, but we might see a bit of a shift saying, okay, well, look, I wasn't able to win with the double steel. Maybe I try something different. Maybe I run the Alolan Ninetales. Maybe I bring the Scrafty. So we're going to have to see what happens in game number 2. We're going to be seeing the Trevenant lined up versus the Toxapex. First time that we're really seeing Toxapex with a pretty decent matchup here, Phoebe.
Yeah, the Pokemon are both doing neutral damage to each other with their fast moves, and then Toxapex is going to only be able to do resisted damage with the Brine, but once you get to that Sludge Wave, it's going to do a little more damage.
All right, well, Zersulis opting to go straight for the Seed Bomb. That is not going to be the most efficient move. That's actually going to be Shadow Ball. So first one goes through. Chia Mika, no problem. Already at a Sludge Wave, opting to go for the Brine here. This is a resisted move. This would be a huge no-shield on the side of Zersulis, and decides to let it go. This is resisted damage. What a call.
Yeah, that is a huge call from Zersulis. We see that the second charge move is not able to be reached by Chia Mika. A Shadow Ball comes out. This will be able to knock out the Toxapex, if not shielded, never mind, it's not quite enough damage.
And able to get to the Sludge Wave. Oh my gosh, despite throwing a resisted Brine, able to get to a second move after no shielding 2 moves. That is the bulk of Toxapex on display, taking the Seed Bomb, taking a Shadow Ball, no problem, able to get to 2 moves.
Yes, now unfortunately for Chiamika, she no longer has a hard answer to this Charm Alolan Ninetales. I would expect the Trevenant to come out and probably just go straight for Seed Bombs, attempting to get as much chip damage. Oh, actually going for the swap into the Medicham, trying to catch a Weather Ball. I don't mind that play. Unfortunately for Chiamika, this Medicham was going to be very solid against the Galarian Stunfisk in the back.
This went from tough to bad because at this point, these charms are adding up very quickly here. Chiamika putting in a very tough position. I understand wanting to catch what would have been a super effective move, that being the Weather Ball on the Trevenant, but now trying to catch it on the Medicham. But nice disciplined play from Zersilis, able to resist the urge to throw right away, and is now able to get this nice alignment. What this means for Zersilis is that his Galarian Stunfisk is not lined up versus this Medicham, putting him in a very favorable situation.
Yeah, Zersilis is going to be able to get a large farm down here and come out with a Weather Ball. The Weather Ball will need to be shielded by Chiamika, otherwise her Trevenant will get knocked out. We see the Shadow Claw go through. She's debating shielding. She does shield. Good call. Now the question becomes, does the Trevenant have enough energy to be able to knock out this Galarian Stunfisk?
Yeah, Galarian Stunfisk is likely going to need to get to 2 Rock Slides. At this point, Zersilis says, I don't want to take another Shadow Ball. I took a Shadow Ball early on with that Registeel last time. Not this time. Going to go ahead and shield it up. Trying to go for the Earthquake here. Feed, this actually does do a little bit more damage. When we take a look at, hey, do I want to go for 2 Rock Slides? When 1 Earthquake is enough to knock out despite being resisted, same type attack bonus. Very nice play. Great recognition, knowing that 1 Earthquake is going to be more effective than 1 Rock Slide.
Yes, very smart play there to go for the resisted Earthquake. It's weird to hear us say it.
Yeah.
Resisted being the right move because of the energy cost of 2 Rock Slides being more than the Earthquake. If you're really threatened by the timing of your opponent's charge moves and fast moves, going for the single highest hitting damage move, even if it's not the right move in terms of efficiency, is sometimes the best play, and there it definitely was.
Well, I'd love to see the series tied up 1-1. That definitely could have gone a different way. I think that if we had seen Toxapex perhaps use a shield, we could have seen it lined up versus that Alolan Ninetales. But I think what the key misplay there was going to be seeing that the Medicham lined up versus the Alolan Ninetales. Very smart play in theory, trying to catch a move, but Zersilis did not fall for the bait, decided to keep the Alolan Ninetales in, and the rest is history. Those charms had a very quick alpha feed.
Yes, Charm is a very solid move. I would have also liked to see potentially just going straight for the heavy-hitting Sludge Wave against that Trevenant, given that you had already no-shielded what was a Seed Bomb bait.
Yeah, I think we could have seen a Sludge Bomb early on, and then maybe a Farm Down coming out with a ton of energy, which either could have translated to a Brine versus Galarian Stunfisk, or a Sludge Bomb versus the Alolan Ninetales. But we're going to be seeing a very tough matchup here for Chiamika in game number 3. The Azumarill versus the Big Steel Doorknob, the Registeel. One interesting thing here, my co-caster Alpha Feed pointing to the screen here, we're seeing a Hydro Pump on this Azumarill. Very rare to see that. Trying to actually catch a resisted Zap Cannon, bringing in the Trevenant. This will actually bring out the Araquanid Feed.
Yes, the Araquanid coming out puts the positioning for that Alolan Ninetales to theoretically be against that Medicham in the back. We see the Shadow Ball coming out. This is the correct move. No shielding is pretty solid for Chiamika here. She's able to land a Seed Bomb.
Okay, well, this is a big decision here. We know that a Bug Buzz is going to do a lot of damage. Very hard-hitting move despite not being a very attack-weighted Pokemon. But no, it is the Bubble Beam. This is a debuffing move. It's going to debuff the attack. But still, even after using the shield, you're in a position where you can likely throw these Seed Bombs here. Seed Bomb is going to be enough to pressure a shield here versus this Araquanid, and that's exactly what we see.
And I think Chiamika might even be able to reach another Seed Bomb before the Bug Buzz comes out. It's going to be pretty close, and it's just before the Bug Buzz is reached. This is still threatening to knock out the Araquanid.
Yeah, if you're going to be using Bubble Beam, typically you're going to be wanting to shield the first move, knowing that the later moves are going to be going to hurt less, knowing that they've been debuffed their attack stage 1. But that is not the case here. Trevenant's going to be able to, despite being debuffed, take that matchup. This is going to draw on the Alolan Ninetales. Not able to get to a move, but we see a hard swap, bringing in, oh my gosh, this Azumarill actually able to get to this Hydro Pump here. If this goes unshielded, it's going to do a ton of damage, and that's exactly what we're seeing right here. Able to get some great value out of this Azumarill.
An unconventional moveset for Chiamika here. Having the Hydro Pump, being able to do a significant amount of damage to that Alolan Ninetales is absolutely huge for her. We see the shield on the Zap Cannon. The defense drop comes through 67% of the time, all of the time.
That's right. Well, we're going to be seeing a race to the charge move. A race is something that, to charge moves, at least, is something that Registeel is rarely going to be losing. With access to Zap Cannon, able to get to those so fast. And yeah, 66% of the time, it happens every time, Pete. We've seen, I think, 3 straight debuffs now for this Registeel. Going straight for this Hydro Pump, but with 2 debuffs now, may not do as much damage. Nonetheless, Zersulas saying, I'm going to use that final Protect Shield.
Zersulas is actually in a very interesting spot here. If he's able to go for the complete farm down, he does not. This Ice Beam does come through. It's going to do very little damage, honestly, to this Registeel, given the debuffs and the fact that Ice is resisted by Steel. We see the complete farm down, full energy Registeel. What Pokemon comes in? It is the Medicham, an attempted catch, the switch out into the Ninetales. The Ninetales is able to charm down and is potentially able to get to the Psyshock. The Psyshock is just neutral. The question is, can the Medicham farm down enough to come out with a potentially knockout charge move?
Yeah, well, this is 2 times from Zersulas now. Good recognition in knowing which move is going to do more damage, which is going to be the Psyshock, despite being non-stab. A little bit higher energy and therefore more damage. All right, but we have a Zap Cannon loaded on the Registeel. Is this enough to knock out the Medicham Alpha Feed?
It is, and unfortunately for Chiamika, no fighting-type charge moves on the Medicham meant that no matter the amount of energy that she had on that Medicham, she didn't have much play once that Registeel came back in. If she had a charge move like Dynamic Punch, which is very uncommon in the meta, but I've seen it every once in a while, she would have definitely had some play coming out of that matchup, but really well played by both of our trainers on the stage.
Without a doubt, we definitely saw Registeel stealing the show there in game number 3, able to do very nicely versus the Azumarill, and then after that big farm down, able to have the energy to knock out the Medicham as well. I mean, we've seen it in previous seasons that Medicham doesn't really have the best matchup versus Registeel. It needs to be able to, it has to rely on the counter damage versus its charge move damage with Ice Punch, with Psychic, both of them resisted. Ice Punch, non-stab, not really that hard of a hitting move to begin with, really going to struggle. In the shields down scenario, at an energy disadvantage, we're going to be seeing what we just saw, which is Registeel cleaning up, able to sweep.
Yeah, and I do want to point out again that moveset decision by Chiamika, the Hydro Pump on the Azumarill, really key for being able to really damage those steel types. Typically in the Galarian Stunfisk matchup, that's actually a lot more neutral, given that Ice Beam is only neutral, it's non-stab, so it doesn't do that much damage to the Galarian Stunfisk. Whereas Hydro Pump, with the heavy energy investment that it does cost, if it does go through, it really threatens the Galarian Stunfisk to be able to be bubbled down after it lands.
You know what? Looking at those 3 games, game number 1 was a little unconventional. We saw the no shield on that Shadow Ball with the Registeel before any sort of attack debuffs whatsoever. And I think that at that point, Zersulas said, I'm not going to make that mistake again. We saw the shield on the, I think it was Galarian Stunfisk in game number 2 early on, which proved to be very opportune. And then in game number 3, even shielding that Hydro Pump. So wanting to make sure, I've got this Registeel, I've got all this energy, I know that I can debuff my opponent's attack. I want to make sure that those first charge moves coming through, the non-attack debuffed ones, are the ones that I'm shielding. So nice plays there. The thing that stood out to me most, though, Alpha Phoebe, 2 incidences where we saw Zersulas throwing moves that, you know, it's kind of questionable. Hey, why are we throwing an Earthquake into the grass type here? But again, 1 Earthquake able to reach much sooner than 2 Rock Slides, does more total damage than 1 Rock Slide. Great recognition there. And then later on with the Psyshock coming from the Alolan Ninetales instead of the Stab Weather Ball, again, more total damage. When you're only going to get to 1 move and it's a matter of, do I want to go for the Weather Ball? Do I want to go for the Psyshock? Another instance of great recognition, throwing the more total damage move, even in scenarios where it may be questionable.
Alrighty, well, with that, Wholesome_, we will see you all soon. We're going to be taking a short break and sending it over to the other casters of Speediest Chief and 2-0 Butters.
See you soon.